Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I've got something very exciting this time around. Perhaps you've seen this cosplay. Or this one. This one. Or even this. These are all done by the amazingly talented Miss Twisted from Australia. I've been a big fan ever since I saw one of her earlier biblically accurate angel headpieces. She does a lot of elaborate cosplays and makeup looks, often using puppetry as well. So with some encouragement from friends, I reached out on Instagram and asked permission for this doll. That's right, we're making Juniper the Alchemist. She said yes. I'm super excited to get started and show you how this long road went. Honestly, there was so much going on, I had no idea how I was going to pull this off. I chose Viperine because I felt her face sculpt had the perfect angular features we needed. She's been well loved in her previous life with a couple of nicks on her face, and her hair is pretty matted. Oh well, we're going to be doing some intense body mods, so let's get started. Juniper has an angular face with a lot of contouring, so using Viperine will save me some time. I'm a big fan of this face up, and I'm almost sad to get rid of it. Her body and hands have a scale pattern, but I didn't see that as a problem. First we need to cut off her hair. And then remove her head. I then use pliers to gently prise off her head snakes. They're pretty neat. I'm gonna keep them for something else. I then had to remove all the plugs, and boy were they stubborn. I had to keep a cup of hot water nearby. So, I always viewed Juniper as being smaller than average, so I decided to remove bits of the doll's body until it was nice and small and still proportionate. I already marked where I'm going to cut, so let's get started with the Dremel and the proper safety equipment. I clean up the edges with a blade of Exact Zero. If you know, you know. My plan is to drill some holes into the pieces and then wrap wire around and through them and then hot glue them in place. Yes, I should have used epoxy glue right away, but I didn't have any. Afterwards, I got out the epoxy sculpt. This is a two-part clay that hardens via chemical reaction. Very toxic, but it works great for dolls. I used it to cover all the connections. Then give her a wash, but unfortunately, the connections didn't hold. They weren't secure enough. Let's try this again! I finally got some two-part epoxy glue and secured everything with it. It couldn't possibly break now, right? Let's check the size. Looks good to me. After applying more epoxy sculpt, I had to sand everything. I used this Tupperware to try and contain the mess. Wig time, you know what that means? Plastic wrap. Stretchy fabric, and layers of Mod Podge. I attach this diamond of foam. This is where we'll build her crest. I also created a bunch of yarn wefts. We'll need these for the wig and for her cuffs later. Following Miss Twisted's tutorial from her Making of the OWLCHEMIST video, I started working on the ears. I used foam. I really wanted to try to create moving ears in miniature. I tried using invisible thread for this, but it was too weak. I ended up stealing fishing line from our old rods that we haven't used in years. And then apparently stabbed myself while sewing in the elastic. Full disclosure, this wig cap did not survive. There was a mishap involving Thaxton and some glue, and it was ruined. So I did everything all over again. And it worked! I was so excited. Here's all my feathers I got for the project. I did actually use up quite a bit of them. But I messed up something while gluing on the wefts and the feathers, and now the ears are stuck halfway up. Bummer, but I'm not making a third wig. To style it, I just cut and feather the ends before using styling wax and hairspray to make them hold into a more anime-like look. I even decorated her pull strings. Time to remove her face. She's not quite pale enough, so I'm going to try to fix that with pastels. I also blushed her face and added her makeup at this stage. Using my watercolor pencils, I mapped out her facial features. If you want lore about Juniper, there's an entire Google Doc in the comments of Miss Twisted's Making of the Alchemist video. Really interesting stuff. It's wicked cold where I live, thank you Nor'easter, so I swapped to acrylics pretty quickly. For her irises, I started with a base of brown and then made a gradient of yellow and yellow ochre inside of that. I add black to her face, including her pupils. For her eyelashes, I don't know man, just clench your butt and go for it. Are they perfect? No, but they look nice enough for me. Now to add her catch lights. I then remembered that highlights are important and should be included. Finally, I shaded her eyes with black pastel to add depth. And then came UV resin for her eyes and lips to make them shine. Her eyebrows need to be feathery, so let's just use actual feathers. I just cut them tiny and glued them into place. I will be the first to admit this body is an absolute mess. I should have scrapped it right here, but I was determined to make this work. However, the pastel method for changing colors wasn't going to work on this gray epoxy, at least not in a few layers. I tried to blush it after adding acrylic paint, but it's just a mess. So I took a break to make her glasses. I showed Lily, who squeed as she recognized the character. Extremely validating. Houston, we have a problem. So the neck is destroyed, and there's no usable material left to work with, and I'm out of body. Lily came to the rescue. She ordered me a Gen 3 Draculaura to replace her. We're saved. While we wait for that to arrive, we're gonna make some accessories for her belt. Let's start with the basket. I used an empty water bottle and hot glue to weave twine around the cap. Remember to use plastic wrap? I didn't. And you're never going to get that cap out of there. I made 2 sizes, and then dry brushed them darker. I want them functional, so they need a lining, and I use this pretty cotton. I marked out some circles, and erased the pen with my new tiny iron, and then just shoved them in there with some glue. I trusted my clips would hold it. I later made a basket lid, and now we need to make some scissors. So I drew up a template and transferred it to foam. Through magic, we now have 2. Making the holes for the fingers was harder than I expected, but I got it done. And then shoved a pin through the middle, added some beads, and glued it all together. I used hot glue to make some raised details. They then got a coat of black paint, and dry brushed with silver. I also created this tiny book. And here we have the accessories. I tried to make potion bottles, but that appears to be beyond me at this time, so I grabbed some online instead. Each bottle had UV resin filled inside of it, and a cork shoved in, and was cured. I added alchemical symbols to the book, including Juniper, of course, because she is the best Sailor Scout. While we're waiting for the new body, Lily offered her mini-me to help me make patterns. I'm gonna have to be careful or I'll be making her a new dress too. We're using the plastic wrap and tape method for this to create a shirt and pants. I cut them out of white muslin. The pants, however, need to be beige, so I'm going to try coffee dyeing for the first time. I plopped them in and left them for about 15 minutes. I really should have dyed all the fabric I needed at this point, but I didn't. Voila, beautiful beige. To construct the pants, I sewed up one of the crotch seams. Use bias binding as a waistband. And as cuffs. I sewed up the other crotch seam halfway and then sewed up the inseam. Add a snap and you got a pair of pantaloons. And yes, I'm sewing by hand again, because I heard it's rude to rev a sewing machine at 3 AM. Her sleeve, cuffs, and collar have embroidery, so let's do that. It's a very simple pattern, just some scallops and crisscrosses. Now to construct the shirt. To not waste your time, I'm going to show you a magic trick. Ta-da! A lovely little shirt with gold buttons. Drax here. I love her sweater, but the rest I'm not thrilled with. Oh well. I'll probably take it apart for patterns or something. Back to sewing. I use brown minky to make the arm warmers. And white minky for the cloak. I used the new body to map out how big it needed to be. And then I had to dye it again. Back to the body real quick. I changed the color, but it's not perfect. But that's okay, nobody will see. And back to the cloak. I attached the collar. It closes with a simple hook and eye. The cloak has a braid on it. I used yarn, gold thread, and pearlescent white thread to achieve this. Slap it on there with some chains, and add a couple charms. I don't have the trim Miss Twisted used for her belt or cuffs, but this fabric looks close when you cut it smaller, so that's what I did. Once attached to the rest of the belt, I use my awl to poke some holes. Then add some eyelets off screen. They're not perfect, but they'll work. I threaded some white ribbon through to make a corset-like closure. And then add more chains. For her cuffs, I took more of the floral fabric and glued on those yarn wefts from earlier. I then added more cut-up feathers. I tell ya, I'm gonna be coughing these things up for a week. Her leather belt has 2 D-rings on it. I found this pleather in my stash and achieved the D-ring look by attaching 2 jump rings. So she could attach her potions, I made little harnesses for them. Let me break it down how I did this. Make a cross and glue each arm to the bottle, and then trim around the neck. Make a small loop of pleather and attach it to one arm. Use a strip of pleather the circumference of your bottleneck to cover the neck. Trim once dry. Now you can decorate. I just use studs at the top of each arm. For her boots, I just sewed a piece of pleather around her feet and then turned it. I used these pleather pieces in the shape of her foot to cover the stitching. Using cosplay, I created some shoe bases. I used cosplay because it was already conditioned and I was feeling lazy. After baking, I sanded them with an emery board. I like weathering, but this is a bit too much. And then painted them brown. And then covered them in Mod Podge. I then added glue and squished her feet right onto them. I decorated them off screen. I think they came out quite cute. Wing time! I used to stretch the old t-shirt to make the bases. I then cut the feathers out of felt and cut up the sides to add texture. I then worked in brown pastel into the edges. A bit too much really, I forgot how pigmented this stuff was. Feathers, assemble! Okay, I just really wanted to say that. At this point, I was just praying I wouldn't run out of the 50,000 feathers I'd made. I'm out of feathers. Oh, I don't want to cut more, but here we are, so I guess I'll see you in a bit after I get all that redone. I finished them off with actual feathers. I ran out of the feathers I was using, so I had to use another for the back. But nobody will see that. It's the back! And then attach straps with Velcro so I could attach them to her arms. Despite organizing them all in order beforehand, I still got confused somehow. And finally, I attached this piece to create a harness-type apparatus. And she's done. Oh my god, she's done. I love her. She's so cute and a lot more accurate than I imagined I could make her. I can't believe we got here. Praise the sun. I'm so happy. I legitimately cried. My friend Rora asked before if anything goes right when I customize. No, not really, but the end result is usually worth it. And today even more so. Thank you, Charlotte, for this opportunity. I appreciate it so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Goodbye, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye now.